And we are live, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, we are.
What episode is this? 22, I think?
I think it's 21.
No, I think probably 22. Risk It for the Biscuit podcast, episode 22. We're back, Mark, Roman. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Yeah, man, this is it. Right here.
Yeah.
Like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff before you smash the like button.
Yes.
Before you listen to Roman. It doesn't matter what episode this is.
I need to know, Mark. This is important.
I can literally tell you.
You're right. It's 22.
I've never been wrong in my
apologize.
life. I have never been wrong, Roman. I don't know why you would disrespect me like that.
Okay.
But yeah, man. For me, not the most eventful week. Like I said, no social summer going strong. So Roman, take it away. Tell us what is going on in the world, in the real world.
Take it away.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I am in not the world. I'm in a bubble,
Okay.
which I can talk about later. I think people want to know what's going on.
I can't really tell everybody what's going on with everything because there's only one thing I follow, and that's the war in Ukraine. I'll like read stuff on Twitter other than that, but it's like 80% of the content I consume. So I can talk about that. There's been some fun Twitter drama this week. So we can get into that a little bit if you
This
want.
is Roman's whole personality for the last 2 years.
Yeah, no, it is for sure. Let me find this.
Which is interesting at times.
Yeah, so there's been this whole... So, yeah, I'll just start with the funny one.
Are you going to put this up for us to see?
Yeah, I'm working on it. I wanted to get the good thing here. So, this is... here it is. So there was like this article that came out from this this lady, Janet Manley. And basically, she was like under the impression that Ukrainians are like they don't even have a phone, like they don't know what Twitter is, they don't speak English, nothing. And there was this funny little excerpt that was kind of like memed on a lot this week, where she was saying there are these purporting to be Ukrainian suspicious on Goodreads, suspicious as if
What's a good read?
Goodreads is a platform where people like share like books that they like and stuff like that. And she's like, these Ukrainians can't read books, you know? So I just thought that was really funny because like she genuinely believed that. And then she would also like say, like, oh, all these accounts that are like Ukraine flags, they're obviously like trolls, and they're like, or like they're obviously like Americans that have a Ukraine flag in their handle. And everyone was like, yeah, no, there's a lot of Ukrainian people on Twitter. Like, and this one guy's like, I've been speaking English since I was like 6. I've lived here my whole life, you know, like in Ukraine, he's lived his whole life, and, you know, like he's fluent in English. Like, it's not like, you know. So that was really funny. There's also, you know, counteroffensive is going. So we've seen some gains over this past week.
I was surprised at all that right there at the bottom.
Yeah, so it's been mostly around Velika and Novosilka right here, and then some right here.
English. Our viewers
good idea.
maybe don't read Ukrainian like you. You ever thought about that?
Right. So Velika and Novosilka right there. And there's also been some around here, Orikhiv. Recently today, there's been some unconfirmed maps where this blue part is actually more like this.
Where's Zaporozhye? That's where I read.
Zaporizhzhia, this is Zaporozhye Oblast right here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So like Melitopol,
There
you
was
know,
something that said...
Tokmak. Oh, let me see if I can get this overlay on here. This would be really cool. Let me see. Is this it? Yeah, okay. So this is really cool. This is something they just added to Deep State, which is the map that I like to use. So these black lines are all the big Russian trench positions. So it kind of gives you a bit of extra context into what's going on, right? So you can see like there's been gains here and here, but there's still... also there's some trench positions here, but if we go from here and we measure the distance, it's still around 14 kilometers until we get to the main defensive positions.
So essentially, as soon as we start breaking through those up front, we're pretty much good to go.
Pretty much. When there's a breakthrough here, right? Obviously, there's minefields. There's a whole bunch of stuff around here. But the other thing that like, Russia's suffering very heavy losses right now. I mean, we're suffering losses as well. Obviously, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense is not going to say the exact extent of like the losses that are being, felt. But what a lot of people, I mean, it's kind of just like a basic, logic. Like you can have this trench position, but you need people to defend it, And so the question is, will there be enough, Russian soldiers to actually man these positions for them to really have any significant value? But this kind of just gives you an example. You can kind of see which cities are most important to be defended. Tokmak, it's like a major logistical hub, and then there's like a circle of defenses around because they want to like really defend there. So you can see there's very extensive, you don't want to underestimate your enemy. They've definitely prepared in the they've prepared these positions heavily, so it's not going to be an easy fight.
What about on the left? Go left.
Here?
No.
Oh, sorry. This way?
Do you know how to do left?
Sorry. A lot of this is flooded, by the way.
Dang.
Yeah, so.
Well, yeah, that's what, whenever I was looking, I was like, man, they could just go, I guess you can't really see me pointing on the map, but.
Like here?
Zoom out a little bit.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, like this part right here should be easy to take. Like.
Mark, the renowned general with 20 years of experience.
They actually know me as Sun Tzu. That's what they call me in the streets. But
Art of War.
Yeah, no. Just like, well, whenever they took back Kherson, that's when I was like, okay, we're just gonna run right through them. But yeah, it's
Well, war is hard.
War is hard.
This was obviously from last the fall offensive, summer offensive, as was this liberated area here. And there's also been some changes around Bakhmut. You can see kind of like they're trying to get to here. If they're saying if they get to here, like everything west of Krasnohora will fall.
Dang.
So that's good because this is on the road to Slavyansk, which obviously not good. Slavyansk is a special city.
We have a lot of friends and family in that area.
Yeah.
In that specific city.
Yeah.
We actually spent summers in that city.
Yeah.
For a lot of time growing up.
Yeah, but you can also see like the extensive trenches here as well. Going up through here.
Why don't they just take that corner and just boop? Like, let me come up there.
But yeah, that's kind of. I don't want to spend too much time on it, because I don't know if everyone else is as interested as I am in it. But I just thought it was interesting. And you can also see all this, the entrance to Krym that they put up here.
Jeez.
Yeah,
I keep forgetting that. Yeah, we're supposed to go down there.
Yeah, this is gonna be. Well, I mean, we'll get to it when we get to it, but we gotta break through here or here. Who knows? Maybe they'll do another round 2 of Kharkiv offensive. Take all this.
I wonder how recent those are.
It's a great question. Yeah, probably a little recent. But yeah, so enough with the mapping because like I like to talk about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't feel like I can talk about like the war in Ukraine or like how the counteroffensive is going from like a position of like real confidence, because really I'm just like a follower, right? Like I don't have any military experience, I'm not actually on the ground, but it's obviously something that is very interesting to me. But I can't say like this week.
So you're like a couch quarterback.
Yeah, no, like, but I'm not going to pretend I'm anything other than that,
Like me telling Robert Saleh how to coach the Jets.
Yeah. I love I don't know if you've seen those memes where it's like someone's like, "Oh, we won," And everyone's like, "We."
Yeah, that's me, bud.
Yeah, that's you exactly.
But we usually lose, so
yeah.
But not this year.
Not this year.
Mm-mm. We'll go to New York again, but for more favorable results.
Dude, let's go.
Yeah.
When?
I mean, my birthday is usually when we go.
Yeah, let's go.
In the fall, winter.
That sounds fun.
But the tickets are like way more expensive.
Mm-hmm. But okay, so there's one other thing that I specifically wanted to talk about because I was, this week I was thinking like, Risk It for the Biscuit podcast. We don't talk about
taking risks,
right? But this week I was listening to an audiobook. It's called The Bomber Mafia by Malcolm Gladwell.
Ooh, Gladwell.
Very good book. If you are going to don't read it, listen to it because this book is very interesting in the sense that It was created as an audiobook first, so you'll miss out on a lot if you just read it.
Interesting.
It's a very interesting read. It's about basically in World War II, right? The general
Tell us
approach.
the name.
Huh?
I don't think you said the name.
I said the Bomber Mafia. Times.
We'll show it, I guess. Maybe.
Well, I mean, sure.
Visual.
Yeah, Bomber Mafia. This is the book. Really good book. But basically, like the rundown is in World War II and leading up to World War II.
All right, back to us.
There was there was two schools of thought when it came to bombing.
Okay.
There was the British school of thought, which was it's actually terrible. It's called morale bombing, which is literally just indiscriminately dropping bombs over entire like cities. One thing that not everyone likes to remember is how many civilians died because of that. Like it was obviously like they didn't have like precision guided bombs or anything, right? But like how many civilians in Europe died? Like I don't know if you know about the city of Dresden. You don't know about the city of Dresden? Oh man,
if it's not on 1776 soil, I'm not really concerned.
Dresden bombing World War II. It was one of the most destroyed cities.
It was German, right?
German held, yeah. It looks like Bakhmut, dude. Like it looks very, very terrible. I don't know how many civilians died, but it was at least in the tens of thousands. You can see these are apartment buildings. Like these weren't these weren't like military. I'm sure there were some military people in there, but
can't even imagine that. Like,
yeah,
it's like a land war like that to that. Like, I mean, obviously we're seeing it now, but like to that extent across all of Europe is insane.
Yeah. So I just wanted to show that.
What about the book?
Right. So there was two schools of thought. There was morale bombing, which is what I just kind of illustrated, and then there was a portion of the United States. It wasn't actually the Air Force; it was an Army division. We didn't have a separate branch for the Air Force in World War II. They were under the Army's command.
Really?
Yeah. So that came later, but there was a school, it was kind of like they called it a mafia because it was like a group of people that like believed like no, like that's not the way to do it. You have to bomb specific what are they called? Choke points, right? So like if there's like a factory that produces certain things that like if that factory gets taken out, then like the production of tanks like grinds to a halt, and like if it's like some specific part that every tank needs or something, right? So that's kind of what they believed in. I don't want to give away the whole book. It's very interesting, but one part that the book talked about is in the Pacific Theater, right? When we were fighting Japan, there was this thing called the hump.
Okay.
So basically, the Pacific Theater, everything was very spread out, right? And so we had to kind of like bomb certain things in Japan's mainland and around Japan, right? But the problem is the planes that we had at the time, there wasn't any place for them to take off where they could go bomb Japan and come back, right? So there was one route. Well, eventually there was another route that was opened up, but for a long time, the only way to do that was they would fly from India, right, over the Himalayan mountains to China, because China, I don't know how much.
Actually, what were they doing during World War II?
They were being run over by Japan. Japan took over.
Oh, I remember, yeah, because when I was in Singapore, they talked about how, yep, okay.
Yeah, so, but, there was a certain part that we helped them, fight back and all that stuff, and so we had, certain air bases there. So they would fly from India to China, refuel in China, fly, and they could only hit, outskirts of Japan mainland, right? There was a specific part when you're flying over the Himalayan mountains called the hump. Well, because the Himalayan mountain range is the tallest mountain range in the world. Over the course of the war, 700 planes crashed in the hump. Over 700 planes.
Oh my goodness.
And just to give you some further context on that, this wasn't F-16s where there's one pilot or two people in the aircraft. There's 10 people.
Oh my gosh.
And so I just thought, it kind of ties into what we're talking about, risk it for the biscuit. The amount of risk that like 700 planes. That's at least 7,000 people.
What is the hump? Like, is it a very high
Yeah.
point of the mountain?
So it's a very high point in the mountains, and there's a lot of fog. There's not good, you know, you don't like we don't. They didn't have the same. Obviously, it was like 80 years ago, however long World War II was. They didn't have the same technology that we have. Like now, if you're flying over somewhere and you lose complete like visual, like you're in like a cloud or something, you can do what's called IFR, which is instrument. Or not, I don't know if it's called IFR, but it's like you can fly just on the instruments. You can see, like, you don't have to actually look out the window at all. But the capabilities that they had in World War II were very limited to do that, right? So it was just a specific point where there was it was very high altitude, like it happened so they would say like 200 planes would take off, maybe like 20 would just not make it through the hump, And to not make it, I mean, like some of them, like maybe they'd have like a mechanical malfunction, or they would just run straight into the side of a mountain, like they just didn't see it. Bro. And so over the course of the war, I think it was 700 or 800 aircraft crashed.
Did the ones that make it? Did they have like success? Like, was their bombing of the places, like their targets? Did that make like a difference? I mean, was it successful at least?
So, that's the thing. I don't want to give away too much of the book.
Oh, it's in the book.
Basically, that school, the American, school of, precision bombing, the TLDR is they didn't have the capabilities to actually do that. And I don't think I'm giving anything away in the book, but if you think Dresden was bad, the cities that we bombed in Japan, because in Dresden, in Europe, the European theater, we used conventional bombs, right? Like conventional explosive bombs. In Japan, we almost exclusively used napalm, which is, those that don't know, it's basically like a rubbery gasoline that there's a first charge that explodes it, and it kind of just sticks to things, and it just doesn't stop burning.
Jeez.
And we burned entire cities in Japan to the ground. I think over 100 cities. Because the other thing with Japan, another interesting thing that people don't think about in terms of architectural style, they build everything out of wood.
Back in the day, or still?
Still, a lot of traditional Japanese homes are built out of wood. But at the time, it was they did studies back in the day, or kind of studies, I guess you would call them, where they kind of check an average American city or a European city, maybe 15 to 20% of the material is flammable. Most of it's concrete. In an average Japanese city, it was 80%. So that's why napalm was very effective there. There were some very horrific things that.
Well, didn't they have an emperor, right? Now they're different, their government structure, but back then it was
yes,
emperor.
Yes, they had an emperor. Yeah. See, and then. Yeah, I don't know. Because, at the end of the book, it kind of touches a little bit on, the nuclear bombs that we dropped. Mm-hmm. And it's a very complicated subject, right? Because on one hand, we killed hundreds of thousands of civilians, right? But the other thing is, if we didn't drop those, first of all, Americans would have to land on the beach, and we'd lose a similar amount of American soldiers, right? So that's bad, number one. Second thing is the war would have been prolonged for several months. And what would have happened is famine in Japan because they didn't have enough food for their people. Because right after we dropped those bombs, Japan surrenders, and we basically fed Japan for a year because they didn't have any, they didn't have the means to
Now when they surrender, who is in there immediately? Are we in there or?
Yeah.
Our government.
Yeah, our military immediately. I forgot who. He was the general for the Pacific Theater. He accepted the surrender officially, and then they moved in and
so we landed on shore, or boots on the ground.
Yeah. I mean, we still are actually.
Yeah,
we had a long, prolonged
bases.
Yeah,
same thing.
That's for a reason. Yeah, Germany as well.
Huh. That's interesting.
But yeah, it's a very interesting read, and it kind of I don't know. I didn't know that we napalm bombed mainland Japan to the extent that we did, because we did some,
I'm just curious because I know Gladwell. Why did he write this book? He wrote Outliers, right?
Yeah.
So why did he write this?
Because it's a really interesting story, and it kind of like touches on a lot of things. One of the interesting things about it is the bomber mafia themselves, right? They were like, dude, like precision bombing has to be it, and they failed multiple times. I'm not gonna go into the details because you should listen to the book, but it was almost like what is it called? Like they failed. He kind of walks through like their process. Like they didn't really learn from their mistakes. You know, they didn't try to correct things a lot of the times, even though they were kind of like trying to be innovative. In some ways, they really didn't like learn from their mistakes, and they repeated them multiple times. So it kind of like touches on that part a little bit, which is kind of I guess why Malcolm Gladwell was interested in it. But
that's so interesting. Great things like really do require risk. Like
yeah, I mean, 700 planes over the hump that were lost. I mean, that's like
that whole like time period to me is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Like just literally just men and women taking risk.
Yeah.
That whole time period. And like think about how so much slower information gets passed around back then. You don't really know what's going on. Like here, like right now everything's moving so fast. So like even if you make a risk, if you make a decision, you at least feel more confident in the information you're getting.
Yeah.
Like think about the military people that were just going in blind.
Yeah, I mean,
like even generals, like you sort of know, but
yeah, like even like the bombers, right? Like after they took off, I mean, they had very limited communication with their people on the ground, and even amongst themselves. Like it was all very, very primitive and very basic. Like it was what, 1940. So like it was only 20 years after World War One. And World War One, if you see the fighter planes that were fighting in World War One, it's like, they're going 100 miles an hour. Like they're, like you could get a faster Cessna, now, yeah, I mean, the amount of risk that like those, soldiers in World War II had to take, like, I don't know, man.
No, that's wild.
It's crazy.
So what risk are you taking? What does that make you think? Because whenever I read about risks and stuff like that, I think, like, what am I doing?
What am I doing currently?
I mean, I know you're not flying into humps and stuff like that, but
yeah,
I'm just curious. I think it's important. I mean, reading is good, but also trying to find how to apply it. Like you reading biographies, and I'm reading about Samuel Adams right now. Mm-hmm. That guy was a G.
Yeah,
was a G. Did you know? This is kind of, I guess, it goes along risk too, but it made me think about like what's going on right now in, I guess, like politics or whatever. Because basically Samuel Adams became who he was, pretty much forced to become who he was because of the attacks on his dad. Mm-hmm. So basically...
And his dad is?
Samuel Adams Sr.
Okay.
But they, in the Massachusetts colony, or the state, I guess at the time, 1740, they tried to stimulate the economy. And basically there was a governor, I forget his name right now. You can probably look it up, 1740, governor
of what?
Of Massachusetts.
Okay.
But they were in recession and whatnot, and the British is taxing them like crazy. And
Jonathan Belcher?
No, 1740. Oh, so you said 17. What did you say? 1741. I'll find, if I see the name, I'll remember it.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. So this governor, He's trying to stimulate the economy. He makes this thing called the land bank. And Teller, no?
William Shirley?
Shirley. It was Shirley. And, so he tries to stimulate the economy by creating the land bank. And basically, this was separate from the money or whatever. It was based on the land that you owned. Mm-hmm. So they gave you like a loan, essentially. Mm-hmm. Or they gave you like money based. And, but... obviously the British, weren't fans of that, and so they put pressure on Shirley because he was for the bank. He created it, and as soon as it passed, and as soon as they gave the money to everybody, they put pressure on him to reverse it So the bank that he was for, he now has to go against it. He's trying to shut it down like immediately. And basically, it was a huge mess. And they essentially, they made money out of thin air. And then they were like, well, now we need your land. And so Samuel Adams went out, and his dad passed away like before everything happened, and so he inherited the land, the estate, and they were trying to get him, and it was like the government, and it was because of what word am I looking for? Not the crown, I guess, like the crown in England was
the
doing
royals.
all that. Yeah, the royals. There you go, and so they were trying to do all that, and it just changed him as a person, and I just know a PBD always talked about like they're going for Trump, but think about all his sons. You know what I mean? Like they're watching them, kind of pick at their dad, and so they're kind of remembering that what they're gonna become as far as like forces, So just like, yeah, and that guy took a lot of risks. Did you know he went to Harvard?
Who?
Samuel Adams.
Okay, I believe that.
Yeah, a lot of those guys.
Yeah, because Massachusetts,
Yeah.
Harvard's, I think, the oldest university in the United States, I believe. It's been around since like 1600 something.
Yeah. They said it's so interesting to read about like Samuel Adams. It's like they said he was very like calm, very well spoken. I guess and just very. The book's kind of a tough read, but
what's the book called?
The Revolutionary. Samuel Adams. It's kind of written like a novelish, I guess.
Okay. Like first person?
No.
Okay.
But it goes through his life and whatnot, and yeah, I talked about this on a recent episode, like a previous episode, but yeah, just the risk ordinary people had to take, But yeah, what about you? You risking anything for the biscuit right now? What's your biscuit?
Right now, honestly, I'm just counting down the days to get done with school. Like I'm just too mentally, like it's just too big of a mental burden at the moment to really be doing anything. I'm just, stacking my chips and waiting for school to end.
That's how I was too.
It's just, it's so brutal. I don't know why this semester, I thought biology would be easier, but I just got a notification maybe an hour ago that I got a 38 on a bio lab assignment.
This is a scholar sitting next to me, guys.
Yeah, 38. But that's because I, I don't know. It feels like I'm doing 2 full-time jobs right now.
I feel you.
I don't know why. Like, last semester was tough. And it was, like, calculus 2, and it was, like, all this stuff. But this semester, it's just, like, 2. I was, like, coming up to it, I was like, dude, it's just 2 BS classes. Like, how hard can it be? And, oh, my God. And, like, it's just, like... the tests, I have to actually, I'm like, dude, I really don't want to learn all this bio. I have to memorize it, because of the exams. Like, I can't, know. And I had like a nightmare, not a nightmare, but like a dream where I missed the deadline for the final exam, and they're like, you can't graduate.
Oh my goodness.
I wake up like, oh.
That's too funny. Yeah. Now let me ask you this, because I've noticed this. So with my new job, I'm literally just in the office. Yeah. When you started, I guess you've always been on the computer, but when you started and going in the office and whatever, were you like more exhausted? Did you find yourself feeling more exhausted?
Mentally, yeah.
But like mentally, and then it affects you physically? Like I'm having trouble waking up in the mornings. I'm going to bed same time, even early. I'm trying to go to bed earlier just to get some rest. I'm waking up and I'm just dead. And previously, I was working in the office, but also, I was in the warehouse as well, but I wasn't as tired.
Yeah, I don't think I remember any significant difference. No. I felt great over the summer because it was like internship. Everything was so new, so cool.
I guess.
Had a whole bunch of friends there, But after the internship ended, it kind of like changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there was less people in the office. It kind of felt a little dead. But I've always kind of been low energy, so I don't know.
I got you. Yeah, I'm ready to grind, though. I feel like this job is a risk. It's not so much as a risk for me, but it's like definitely out of my comfort zone.
See, yeah, that's what I like. Every so often, at like my job, I'll have to give some sort of presentation. And I think the last like major one, because in the beginning, right, I'd have to do sprint demos. I still do those, right? But now those are comfortable for me because it's like, dude, it's like 20, 30 people, like whatever. But it was like maybe a month ago. Yeah, I think maybe a month ago. I had to demo something in front of like the entire R&D organization.
How many people was that?
Like 500 people.
Jeez.
It was on Zoom.
Oh my god.
But it's a lot of people.
That is a
You
lot.
know?
Yeah.
And I was so like I don't know, I just get like nervous and like, dude, I'm like, dude, what if I say something stupid? Like, what am I supposed to say? And I had like 2 days notice, bro. I was like,
Dang.
but yeah, that was like really scary. And then I've had multiple presentations for like C-suite level people, and those are also kind of like, they're scary, but I like our CTO. Like he's pretty like he kind of gets things, so like you can kind of, so that's kind of like good and like stuff like that. But those are also pretty nerve-wracking because there's like that like probably anyone in the C-suite can see that, and VPs are watching that and directors and stuff, so it's kind of like intimidating.
That's interesting. No, I think the only time I mean, you still get nervous, but I think it's like with anything, like if I'm prepared,
Yeah.
if I know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
then that's fine. Because what I noticed is like people really don't care what you say.
Yeah, I keep
Like,
trying
they-
to tell myself
They
that like
literally like
nobody really cares.
you're like, oh, what if I say it like this and they think it's weird?
Yeah.
They literally don't care.
Nobody cares. That's the thing. But like it's hard for your brain to understand that, for your pea brain to really get that.
Well, I mean, my brain's huge.
Yeah. Well, maybe my brain's just, a little
Yeah.
small.
But
You keep talking, I need to mute my mic.
yeah, but no preparation. I think in that case helps me. But yeah, I'm excited. Like as I was saying earlier about like just being out of my comfort zone. I'm excited but I'm also nervous, and I try not to take my brain there because that's when you start getting anxious. But one thing I'm extremely good at is overthinking, and I'm like, man, what if I am not successful in this?
Yeah.
Because every successful person you listen to, every book you read, every business person, they all say the same thing, right? Selling is the most important skill. Sales is like the most important attribute you can have, and the most important skill you can learn. And I'm like, what if I get like 4 or 5 months into this and I'm like, dude, I can't sell. And I'm like, so what does that mean? Am I just a failure forever? Or like, you know what I mean? Which obviously is dramatic, and I'm just overthinking it. And I try to keep my brain from going in that direction.
Yeah.
But it can't. I mean, it does cross my mind,
I think about that sometimes because I'm not a salesperson, But on the other hand, like, all types of people succeed, right? I mean, if you're good at like selling, that doesn't necessarily always translate, right?
That's true.
And like selling doesn't have to be like door-to-door salesperson.
Right.
You just have to be. I feel like the more important thing is just being able to communicate effectively, because a lot of people can't communicate, and that's a really big problem.
Very true. I hear that. I even noticed that in like day-to-day interactions. Like you ask a question, and they answer it in like just answer the question.
Yeah.
Like you ask a question, like a very direct question. People try to dance around it. Just be clear to the point.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that just don't. I don't know. I've seen a lot of that, of like people that are just exceptionally terrible at communicating. I've definitely seen that, or just people that have very bad like social awareness of like where, hey, maybe I'm being rude right now, but like there's certain, especially like on Zoom, because like my team's mostly remote. Like there's definitely like some problems in terms of like there may be some like kind of like animosity a little bit because you don't really know each other, and like it's very easy to kind of like build someone up in your head, like, oh, this person's this, and then like you're treating them a certain way, or like like they're being, you perceive something to be mean because of their communication style or something like that, you know. And there's also like there's just some people that just aren't good communicators, you know. Like there's one there's one
Careful.
person. No, I'm not gonna say anything about him, but the way that I describe them is they're like a comedian that keeps bombing. They don't realize that they're bombing, and it's just like, you know,
That's funny.
I've definitely seen that before, where someone just continually, you know, is just really bad at communicating.
Yeah, but so that's actually one thing that I'm gonna kind of, you got to play to your strengths.
Yeah.
So I feel like communicating, I am not
Relatively
maybe
good.
not great, but like exceptional.
Yeah.
I mean, I try my best. So, and I was gonna kind of take this along the lines of, whenever you're taking big risks, I think it's important to have a strategy and have a plan.
Yeah.
So for me, if because you can talk about strategy, but like when you're actually doing it, I think it is more effective, like in terms of like relating to people.
Yeah.
And so going into this, my plan is just to work as hard as I can. The company is doing very good at training us and putting us, and a lot of the people I've talked to that came in January and they're successful, they're just like literally just do what they tell you to do. And
they have a really good system.
Yeah, they have a good system. Just follow the system and you'll see success. You'll see. And so my plan is to do that, is to put my head down, grind, figure out my routine, and improve. I'm watching sales. I'm not on social media, but I am watching sales videos, and I'm reading sales books, and so I'm trying to give my all. And especially since we do this podcast, Risky for the Biscuits, about business, like that's kind of the taking risk. So I'm like sitting there, I'm like, man, is this a risk for me, or am I just kind of playing it safe? But the position is called business development sales representative, and I thought about it. It's like, because the cool thing is to be an entrepreneur, but I'm like, listen, if I take that risk in being an entrepreneur, I'm going to be doing the same amount, and I'm going to be just as stressed, and I'm going to be working just as much, if not more, than I am right now. So in my mind, this is a risk. It's outside my comfort zone, but I have a plan, I have a strategy, and I have work ethic. I love PPD.
Yeah.
The guy's great, but he has this thing, just 4 phrases that he kind of goes back to: outwork, out improve, out strategize, outlast.
Yeah.
So I kind of have those in my brain for these next 3, 4, 5 months till the end of the year, and I just keep telling myself, so outwork I can do 100%. That's just you versus you. And I'm like, okay, I got to be doing at least 3 of them. If I'm not strategizing, I work and outlast. I feel like I have a motor. So if you're taking risks,
well, I think the other thing about like working at a big-ish company is like if you just went straight from college to what?
Your battery.
Yeah.
Very professional podcast here.
I apologize. My computer was at like 80%.
Yeah. Roman is no, it's okay. We'll wrap it up. Say what you were gonna say, and
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So basically, I was saying like, if you went straight from college to business, like, there's a lot of things, a lot of useful information that you learn.
Oh yeah.
From a big company. Like, there's some things they wouldn't even know to consider, or like there's certain ways that things are done that maybe are the most efficient, but you wouldn't know, and like you'd be kind of just out in the wind. Like there's a lot of things now that like I know in like the software space where I'm like, oh, okay, like if I hadn't worked here, I definitely wouldn't have known that, and I wouldn't have known like, hey, doing things this way is like way better or way more efficient, or like this is how to like organize a team, because a lot of that, like even if you're not the one leading the team, there's a lot of things that you see on like how to effectively, how like your leaders are doing that, and if you can see, if they're doing a good job or not. So I think it's still very useful.
It's a good experience for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a good experience.
I like the pressure though. I like the pressure, and it's just different because I've never seen success in this sphere.
Mhm.
You know, like if you can shoot a three, right, and you've seen it go in 1,000 times, it's no problem.
Yeah.
If you've never shot a basketball before, you're kind of. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing here. You know, I've never done this before. Never cold call people.
Yeah.
Never had to build relationships on the phone. But I'm ready to grind it out, man.
No, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
So I'll be sharing. That's pretty much all I'm going to be talking about for the next 3 months because
It's gonna be.
I have no social. It's going to be Ukraine and cold calling.
I was gonna say it's gonna be Ukraine and freight logistics.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're watching this and you need freight moved,
yes, Mark. Yes.
Let me know. I am a freight specialist.
Yeah, this guy.
And actually, Roman, I can get very good rates. LTL, I got you.
Yeah, LTL, very good rates.
Very good
Better
rates.
than freight quote, if that means anything to you.
You heard. Hey, I didn't even pay him to say that. So
He did not. I paid him for the LTL. Actually,
he did actually.
he actually made money on me. So
I did. Yeah. Well, hey, what did I say last week?
know.
What did I say? Pockets
you said you're a capitalist pig.
deep over
Oh.
here.
Yeah, you got to get it how you live. You know?
Yeah, pockets are extremely deep. But anyway, I think we're gonna see some big improvements here on the pod. I
Yeah.
think we're gonna also shoot. Maybe it's episode 22.
Yes.
Yeah. So if we give it 8 weeks, that's 2 months. What about episode 30? We shoot for our first guest. What do you say that?
Who?
I don't know. We
Sure.
shoot for it though. Someone who's taking risks. Maybe you want to be on the podcast. Maybe you should comment. There have been 0 souls that have watched to this point on the other 21 episodes.
But if you're
watching this and you want to be on the episode,
yes,
and you've taken massive risk in your life and you have some stories to tell,
yeah,
I guess comment because we don't have an email.
we'll definitely read it.
Yeah, if you just comment on it, we'll be so excited. We'll probably bring you on next week.
Yeah, we'll fly you out.
Yeah.
Mark will fly you out.
Deep pockets, but
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Okay.
We got a thumbnail.
Yep.
Okay,
My computer's gonna die.
computer's gonna die. We'll be better next week. Risk it for the biscuit. Have a blessed week,
Yes.
and that's it. Peace.
Peace.